Hello. Beep, beep, beep. Once again, welcome back to the court of the Edijester. And we're back on our favourite subject, free speech. It was so heartening to see people going to the trial of Graham Linehan, which has been an extraordinary sight to see, as I'm sure you're already aware, and to see that they are there to support free speech. Great to see Sex Matters there. Fantastic. Keith from Our Duty. Sharon, the swimmer, bless, there, all of them there to support free speech. We need to make our voices heard on this matter so that we can end things like the Online Safety Act and various other laws that have been brought into place to so-called deal with hate. Every hate crime law needs to go. I have an article today from the Telegraph. Starmer's Britain is descending into anarcho-tyranny. But before that, please do subscribe, save, share, do the usual, get it out there, or buy me a coffee. Subscribe on my Twitter or on my Substack if you'd like to get these videos without the adverts on YouTube. And become a warrior teacher. Usual stuff, yep. So Starmer's Britain is descending into anarcho-tyranny. An article here from Alistair Heath speaking in the Telegraph. Even Nigel Farage testifying before the US Congress did not convey the full horror of what is happening in the UK. I concur with that opening statement. Britain, once the freest, most democratic country in the world, is descending into anarcho-tyranny. Bereft of a moral compass, contemptuous of public opinion, uninterested in our glorious history of ordered freedom, the British state's nomenclatura are presiding over an intolerable mix of chaos and authoritarianism, failing to tackle genuine criminality while persecuting respectable citizens for their thoughts and speech. Absolutely true. I've spoken before about the moral compass in my article on Twitter about how it's steeped in the values of the Enlightenment and, of course, Christianity, which has been our religion for many years. The loss of that, even for those of us who are not religious in nature, is a terrible thing. We never, ever should have killed God, and that is what we attempted to do. Even Dawkins, I'm confusing the two there, Andrew and Richard. Even Richard Dawkins is now touring the country because he feels that the new atheists got it wrong, and I think he's right. But for those of us that are not people of faith, we can still recognise the importance of the moral clarity, for example, of Christianity, combined with the Enlightenment that gave us the world that we now so desperately miss. The contradictions, he continues here, Alistair, the contradictions, double standards, and selective enforcement are a national scandal. They threaten to turn us into a pariah state, shunned or even sanctioned by true believers in liberty. Absolutely right. Somebody messaged me yesterday and said, is Graham going to go to the American embassy and ask for asylum? I think that's an interesting idea. I really do. Can you imagine the headline for that, what it would be? The first case of somebody asking for asylum from the UK. You don't think we're that far from this, then you are living in cloud cuckoo land. Free speech is everything because it is free thought. Without those two things, nothing we do will matter. You can tinker around at the edges all you want, but you'll be doing it under a cloud of censorship, right? Driven by this bunch of utopian nitwits who think they're going to bring about the utopia, the global utopia, when in fact what they're doing is destroying Western civilization. Nigel Farage was in Washington explaining to shocked Anglophile congressmen just how far we have turned our back on free speech. And yet, even the Reform leader couldn't fully convey in one session the full extent of Britain's degeneration. If you're a shoplifter, an illegal immigrant, a ne'er-do-well pretending to be disabled to claim benefits, or a petty criminal no longer deemed worthy of prison, you will have little to fear in anarchical Britain, where there is little money and limited policing resources to come after you. If you're a responsible pillar of the community exercising your traditional right to free speech and have forthright or anti-woke views, you risk trouble from the commissars of authoritarian Britain, who suddenly have endless capacity to track you down, monitor your public and private messages, and detain you. The case of Graham Linehan, the Father Ted creator, was especially shocking. He was arrested by 5 armed police officers at Heathrow, interrogated over innocuous gender-critical tweets, and ended up in hospital with elevated blood pressure. This is what happens in police states, not civilised countries. Nobody who engages in wrongthink is safe. Thousands of ordinary people have been harassed, but so have leading journalists such as our own Alison Pearson and author Julie Bindel, and even a former Labour MP. As in all authoritarian regimes, the knock on the door can come any time, for anyone, for any reason. The process is the punishment. Many stay quiet for an easier life. It is worth mentioning here that what Graham is going through is not particular to Graham. Many women have been through the same process. Many women have had the knock on the door. Many women have been through the process is the punishment. This just happens to be a high profile one. And those of you that are watching, if there are any, that are not aware of what's going on, to dismiss this as an aberration would be a very foolish and very naive mistake. This is not an aberration. This is becoming the norm. The great paradox is that the advent of human rights as our secular religion undermined our traditional liberties. There you see secular religion undermining traditional liberties, echoing what I said at the beginning of this video, and coincided with the decline of freedom of expression. Human rights curtailed our real rights, the very opposite of what were promised. The Blairite Revolution, which began in 1997, is to blame. I cannot argue with that, although, like many of you out there, I remember the day after Blair won so very clearly, and yet I remember very little else of my past. It's just so strange how things are brought into stark relief one after the other. It did seem to me like the sun was shining bright, and that we were going to get some change because we had 18 years of Tory government. I didn't know what it was like to live under a Labour government. I do now, of Tory government. And it felt like the sun was shining brighter than it had for a long time. The world felt full of hope and full of promise. Little did we know what was at the base of all that was going on. The absolute abject lies we were told as a nation by Blair. It is true, we continue with Edijester here, that free speech was insufficiently protected in the 1980s and 1990s, but the Human Rights Act, the creation of the Supreme Court, the left-wing takeover of our institutions, the rise of quangos, the onset of lawfare, and the rest not only didn't solve the problem, but actually made it, and much else, worse. The public ended up less free to say that what they thinks. The rot spread further during the technocratic Tory years of 2010 to 2024, under whose watch we suffered an explosion in the recording of non-crime hate incidents, further encroachments in freedom, and mass monitoring, and a war on dissent during the COVID situation, which we'll all remember, I'm sure. We keep being told that leaving the ECHR and HRA would turn us into new Russia, and yet it increasingly feels as if we're already living in a Soviet-like dystopia. We aren't free to speak out despite these treaties and declarations. The left-wing juristocracy doesn't believe in true freedom. It believes in weaponizing the law for social engineering. The ECHR is a useful tool to promote open borders, but it won't stop Linehan from being arrested. Starmer felt obliged to defend Linehan, and Wes Streeting went as far as calling for a change in the law, but nothing meaningful will happen. Nothing. Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, would never allow it. The best we can hope for are tweaks and slightly more liberal guidance for the police. Make no bones about it. This article is worth a read. Make no bones about it, folks. If we do not rid ourselves of this insane world we built, based on the 1997 lies of Tony Blair, based on the concept of human rights, which is so faulty, and based on the fact that there are specific subsets and groups that desire special treatment and are getting it currently. The absolute nonsense that is. We need to get rid of it all. Free speech is sacrosanct. Free thought follows from that. Censorship is an abomination in all forms, and it must be used very, very sparingly. It's not being. And what we're seeing is the descent, as said here by Edijester, the descent of Britain into anarcho-tyranny. That's what we're seeing. And it's uncomfortable. Free speech matters. Come and be a warrior teacher, for God's sake. We're up to our eyeballs in this stuff, trying to get something done about it, as are many others. Don't sit back. Don't sit by. Join the fight. Whether it be a sticker on a post, on a lamppost, a letter to an MP, or a letter to a local paper, or talking in your own social groups. It doesn't matter how small your contribution is. Contribute. We're all better when we have a dragon to fight. And this is the dragon to fight. Free speech, censorship, and the repeal of all hate laws must be a priority. I'll see you later, eh? Keep going. Just keep going. Bye-bye.